What's up, it's Serum from ANY Samples, and today we're gonna dive into Uptempo kicks. Preset I'm showcasing, making in this video, and an insane freebie that I've worked a long time on. You can download for free, no email required. You click a button and it's yours with the link below. And today we're gonna make something like this. Bounce kicks, Zaag Kicks, and finally, Piep Kicks. Quick disclaimer, a lot of people have a lot of different definitions for uptempo kicks. For example, microwave and kracht kicks. I'll do those in a different video because they're slightly different, but I get it if you're like, why is that not in this uptempo kick video? But in this video, I'll show you how you can do bounce, zaag, and piep kicks because I feel like that's 80-90% of the kicks out there. It's basically the definition I gave these kicks. If you have a different name for these kicks, fair enough, it's just how I call them. So the way this video is structured is very easy. It's going to be a blueprint that you can always use to dial in any uptempo kick you want. Serum 2 is extremely powerful, and if you use it the right way with the right techniques that I'll show you, you can basically make any uptempo kick you want. First, I'll show you the basic setup that will apply to any uptempo kick. Then I'm going to take that setup and show you how you can do a bounce, zaag, and piep kick. Then I'll show you some secret sauce that you can put in between that first setup, and these techniques will allow you to really experiment with these kicks, which is important. Then I'll show you how you set up the macros, sort of the things you can tweak to always make different kicks. Let's get right into it. Let's make one in F sharp. And make sure the BPM of your kick is the same as the BPM of your song. In this case, for me, 180. Take down oscillator A 2 octaves. Open oscillator B 2 octaves down as well. Remove the phase randomization right here, so the kick always starts at the same phase point, otherwise it's not consistent and it ruins the phase. Disable oscillator A for a second and open B, and we remove the subharmonics. This is because we're going to detune B, which will allow us to fill up the left and right channel, which makes these kicks a lot better. But if you already have a subharmonic in A and then detune B, it's going to basically screw up the phase of the kick. So that's why we remove those subfrequencies. Once you have this, go to the effects and we're going to basically dial in 4 different distortion stages. The first 2 are going to be heavy distortion to really shape the kick, and the final 2 are going to be soft clippers, sort of to change the tone and the mix of the kick. First, 0 square all the way. Then, equalizer in front, boost the bass with a bell curve. If you click, I'm going to do that on every equalizer. Click and you get the frequency spectrum. Add another big curve right here. Now, we add a hyperdimension in front on retrigger, so it retriggers the phase, and no rate. Take the mix down a bit, and now you can change the tone of your kicks slightly. Then, our second distortion stage, a 0 square distortion again all the way. EQ in front, and first, let's add a big peak on bell curve. Don't worry about how it sounds. And then we're going to use LFO1 with a shape like this for now. We'll tweak this later. And take the gain down. Shift-Alt-Click, take it down a bit, and have it go like this. This is because when the bass is low, the mids take over, and when the bass is higher, the mids don't take over. And that's what creates that drive, sort of that uptempo kick. Then I'm adding another EQ in the second distortion stage on LFO2, make it shaped somewhat like this, so we have a peak, a sort of an attack, and put this on bell curve again. And just boost it around the same spot of the first peak. Third distortion stage, which kind of shapes the tone of our kick in the mix. Boost on the bass. Same LFO goes on there from 0 to a bit up. And then we're going to boost the highs a bit. And then we're going to clip it with a soft clipper. All the way. Make sure this is around 80 Hertz. So it's really on the lows. And then our final distortion stage, the fourth one, is an equalizer again with a bass boost. And we're going to really cut into the lows. See, it's a very big difference that makes the kick a lot more professional. Now, we add another equalizer again and we boost the highs. One more distortion on soft clipper. And then we just add a utility, bass, mono, and add that before the final distortion. This is the basic setup that you can use for any uptempo kick, and anything you do now, change the LFOs, the peaks, the filters, will completely change the kick. Now I'll go from the basic setup to a zaag, bounce, and piep kick. Let's start with zaag. The first thing is taking this down a bit, so we have more mids here, and then making it shorter. So we have a very fast attack, and then we can play with the tone very easily here. Because this is the sub. The more sub we have, the less mids we have, and that changes the flow of the Zaag. Then you can change the tone of your Zaag by playing with the detune. As well as this detune here. It's important you don't push this one too much. Now we can kind of add an equalizer in the second distortion stage, add a peak, and kind of go frequency hunting. You can do this in any stage of any uptempo kick. That's the beauty of it. You make the setup, you hunt frequencies sort of, and you boost the right ones, and you get a ton of different kicks. But for the Zaag kick, just make it go from 0 to up. And then just have it open up here. This one controls this peak and that peak. So as you can see, what I would call a Zaag kick is not that different from the basic setup. So let's save this, and I go back to the basic setup that we had. No special effects, nothing. And let's get into the bounce kicks. So the first thing you gotta know about bounce kicks is the shape of the LFO of the sub. If the LFO is low, it means that the sub is low and the mids are prominent. And then if it's high, the sub is high. For bounce kicks, you want sort of a shape like this. This is almost 90 degrees and will allow that sort of like offbeat, like vibe, you know? And this right here is a very subby stage. It's important that it's in your kick. Now you can change the tone of that offbeat right here by just changing where it lands. Then you want to kind of add another hyperdimension in the second distortion stage. So in front of the second 0 square. Retrigger, no rate. And the blend between the first one and the second one. Now, another thing that's very important for these is kind of the initial punch, and that's made with the peaks right here. I like them to be very similar and a bit lower, so we have a very like blunt in your face kick. So just open both frequency spectrums and make sure they're similar. Take LFO2 and increase it a bit. It's more like it. So once you've found a frequency that you like and really boost it, for example 400, 400, you can go to your pre-EQ and change the tone a bit. See, if I change this to a lower frequency, I get a totally different kick. If you click on shift and move the frequency, it moves slower and it allows you to be more precise. One more thing that you can do now is to make it more blunt and in your face by just adding another distortion stage. Use another equalizer and another soft clipper. Boom. Not too much. And then just boost the sub once more. Shift Alt click. And feel free to increase the volume until it doesn't go over 0 dB. So the biggest thing is changing those detunes, changing how this blends, and then changing the peaks. Just make sure that the peaks are boosting the same thing, like this, 412, 406, and then finally improve the in-your-face power by just boosting the sub once more and maybe soft clipping it a bit. So let's get back to the basic setup and let's get into the Piep Kicks. Ironically, these are a bit harder to dial in, but once you know these techniques, you can apply them to the bounce and Zaag kicks as well. It's really good to know. First and foremost thing is taking filter 1, taking 8 through it, go to the flanges, and let's use the phaser 48H6-. The reason I like this one is because, as you can see, there's a lot of information in the mids, but if you open the high pass frequency, it reintroduces the bass, which is helpful to dial in the kick. Do not worry about how this sounds yet, just make sure it's opened on kind of a high frequency like this. Now, we go back into the first equalizer and we just change the slope a bit, so it's a bit steeper on both of them. So we add another EQ, go all the way up to the first one, and then we're just going to boost another peak. Click. Nothing too extreme though. Just use it like this first. Then we're gonna get into the second distortion chain and we're gonna just change these peaks right here. We're very low right now. There are a lot of overtones that we can accentuate with the second peaks. So if we go higher, we already get that peep sound, but it is way too resonant. So put one on bell curve, open that up, go to the bass. Now we already have a higher and a more peep kick, but we're going to use LFO1 and make it actually look a little bit like a bounce. Area for the sub, just take it down, but not as steep, not 90, but like this. LFO2, which is boosting one of the peaks, can open up again fast. Okay, now once you have that high sound, we can just play around with how the sub moves in the kick. You can change LFO1 on the first one here, or add more bass here. And we can go back to our first filter and micro change it with shift and moving it. Another technique to kind of add is opening oscillator C and using LFO2 on the level. Make sure the randomization is down and go up in octaves. Before, after. It adds that sort of peep consistency that we need, plus it fills up the frequency spectrum with clean harmonics that we can boost. If you want, you can increase the Q, the steepness of our bell curves, and you can really make it a bit more tight and snappy sort of. Like I said, you can go frequency hunting, so go to the second distortion stage and maybe add one more peak wherever you want. So what it is with these kicks is literally just playing around with these filters, playing around with the blend between the resonant peaks in the mids as well as the sub. Less sub is more resonance, changing the detune. And then just cleaning them up properly after. I think it's a peep kick because it has a lot of high frequency information. It's very screechy. The way you set them up is a bit different. The phases here help a lot. So now that you know this setup, I think it's time to talk about the secret effect that I would use to upgrade these kicks. You can apply this to any uptempo kick, bounce, zaag, piep, krach, microwave, I don't care. First technique, we go back to the basic setup, we open oscillator C and we just go to the spectral wavetables from Serum 1 and just open something with a lot of overtones like trilobite, you know. Phase randomization down and use the sync. And if you tweak the sync and the level, you can really dial in a different kick. Technique 2 is to use LFO3 and add that to the coarse pitch, Shift-Alt-Click of B and A, Shift-Alt-Click. Now we're going to accentuate on the punch, take this down, make the curve like this, and just find a pitch that sounds cool. This will also change the phase of your kick slightly, so if you want to dial in a better bass tail or whatever, slightly tweak, right? Don't only listen to the punch, listen to what happens to the crunch. It's like this now. So let's use this. Just make sure it doesn't go into the bass part. Third technique, use a splitter low, mid, high, and unfortunately we'll just have to move everything down because we cannot move this up. Put this at the second distortion stage. Boom, 0 square. Now you can already change the tone. Because we split up the frequency bands, it's gonna have crossover frequencies and it's gonna phase shift the kick. You can change the tone just by changing the frequencies. This is great for tone control. So the fourth technique, because this in its own is one, is to go to the mids and just simply add a filter in the middle. Use a multi-filter so you have two filters in one, and just open the frequency. So we open the second filter and play around, okay? Just use any of them. Take an LFO with a weird shape, envelope it like this, put it on envelope and hertz, and add that to the cutoff right here slightly, and the frequency right here slightly. There's no rules, just do whatever you want. Go through the different filters. For example, the high pass notch filter, add some drive. And then combine that with the crossover frequencies. Increase the highs. And then play around with the speed of that LFO. This is going to allow you to really focus on the punch if you do it fast or slow, if it cuts into the full kick. But if you can just change the mid frequencies with different crossover frequencies, technique 3 and 4, it's going to really, really change your kick. So fifth technique is using a distortion anywhere in the chain, but I would recommend after the splitter low high and putting this on signfold. This sounds like trash now, so take it down so you're kind of perfectly filling up a frequency spectrum. With 3 or with 4, it's where you get the cleanest results. Take down the mix, where it's barely noticeable, and then using a pre-filter, removing the lows, going into a bit of the highs, and then kind of just taking the mids with you. Before, after. If you play around with the drive, mix, and the frequency here, it's how you can get that sizzle, that sort of that high rattle in your kick if you need it. Sixth technique is using a filter right here, anywhere in the second or first distortion stage, and just simply use a filter that cuts into your frequencies a lot or boosts them a lot. And phasers and flangers will get you there, maybe even the Combs filters. Choose one where it doesn't really cut into the lows, because when you remove the lows, the mids are prominent and you get a very resonant kick. Take down the mix if it's too much. And suddenly you have a lot of control over how your kick sounds just with this phaser here. So if you take the basic setup, the knowledge of the Piep, Zaag and bounce kick, and then also these 6 techniques and combine all of that together, you can make endless kicks. Genuinely, it's very cool. So now we're going to talk about macros. This is pretty straightforward. Just think about the knobs that influence your kick a lot. Let's think about the tone of the kick first. In the first effects, you can just change the frequency range a bit. Let's loop the kick. Pre-tone. Boom. Done. Let's change the tone a bit with this G-tune right here. Right D-tune. Let's do that again. Boom. Shift-Alt-Click. Take it down a bit. Tone. D-tune. So then let's think about the peaks. You can just change that in the bounce kick, and it's important that those are the same range. So use one macro for both and just start at the same point, because this is where you dialed in the kick. And then just make sure both go up 10%, whatever. Just use a range, but make sure it's both 10%. This is kind of our peak tone, you know? Then a big part of this is absolutely the bass. So let's use a pre-bass, which is controlled by LFO1. Let's make it go down a bit and up. Pre-dist bass level. And then just let's think about the post bass, which is right here. So let's use one for that as well. We can also change the D-tune a bit here. Think about that if you take the bass down, the mids come through again. And this sounds pretty good. So this was a lot of information to take in, but it was 3 kicks in the end anyways. Macros, things to change, secret techniques. But this is sort of like the playbook that you can use all the time to dial in any uptempo kick. You can download the presets that I made, I showcased, and a huge freebie to learn how to make this yourself from our website below. Without any email, just click a button, it's yours. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.